I would like to start by reading a poem to you, an old poem written way back in the 1800s. It's a poem about the church and the world. Some of you may have heard it before, some of you may know it, but for what I'm going to talk about, it's worthwhile for us to just go through this poem, I thought. And so let me just read this poem, and I invite you to read along with me. It's on screen. It says, "The church and the world walked far apart on the changing shore of time. The world was singing a silly song, and the church a hymn sublime. Come, give your hand, said the smiling world, and together we shall go. But the good church hid her snowy hand and solemnly answered, No. I will not give you my hand at all, and I will not walk with you. Your way is the way of eternal death, and your words are all untrue. No, walk with me a little ways, said the world with a kindly air. The road I walk is a pleasant road, and the sun shines always there. Your path is thorny and rough and rude, but mine is broad and plain. My way is paved with flowers and dew, and yours with tears and pain. The sky to me is always blue. No lack, no toil I know. The sky above you is always dark. Your lot is a lot of woe. My way, you can see, is a soft, easy one, and my gate is high and wide. There's room enough for you and me, so let's travel side by side." Half shyly, the church approached the world and gave him her hand of snow, and the false world grasped it and walked along and whispered in accents low, "Your dress is too simple to please my taste. I have pinks and oranges to wear, sensuous hues for your graceful form, and sprays to fluff your hair." Then added he with a shake of his head, shielding his eyes in the glare, "It makes much sense in this fierce sunshine, your comely calves to bear." The church looked down at her plain, modest clothes, and then at the dazzling world, and blushed as she saw his handsome lip with a smile contemptuous curled. "I will change my dress for a prettier one," said the church with a smile of grace. So her simple garments were stashed away, and the world gave in their place beautiful satins and flowery sheens with roses and lace and swirls, while over her forehead her bright hair fell in two bouncy, enticing curls. "Your house is too plain," said the proud old world. "Let us build you one like mine, with kitchen for feasting and rec room for play, and cabinets never so fine." So he built her a costly and beautiful house. Awesome it was to behold. Her sons and her daughters met frequently there, shining in purple and gold. There were cushioned seats for the lazy and rich to sit in their glutton and pride, but the poor who were clad in humble array were scorned till they went outside. PowerPoints and films in the halls were shown, and the world and his children were there. Laughter and music and ping-pong were heard in the place that was meant for prayer. The angel in mercy rebuked the church and whispered, "I know thy sin." Then the church looked sad and anxiously longed to gather the children in. But some were away at the midnight bowl, and others online did play, and some were hanging at Pizza Hut, so the angel went away. Then said the world in soothing tones, "Your children mean no harm, merely indulging in innocent sports. So she leaned on his proffered arm and texted and chatted and uploaded photos and walked along with the world while countless millions of precious souls over the fearful brink were hurled. Your preachers are too old-fashioned and plain, said the smart world with a sneer. They frighten my children with dreadful tales which I do not like to hear. They talk of judgment and fire and pain and the doom of darkest night. They warn of a place that should not be mentioned to ears polite. I will send you some of the better stamp, more brilliant, educated, fast, who will show how men their flesh may please and go to heaven at last. The Father is merciful, great and good, loving and tender and kind. Do you think he'd take one child to heaven and leave another behind? So she called for pleasing and smart divines, deemed gifted and great and learned, and the plain-spoken men who had preached the cross were out of her pulpits turned. Then Mammon came in and supported the church, and sat in a well-padded pew, and preaching and chorals and floral display soon proclaimed a gospel new. You give too much to the poor, said the world, far more than you ought to do. Though the poor need shelter, food, and clothes, why thus need it deprive you? And afar to the heathen in foreign lands, your thoughts need seldom roam. The Father of mercies will care for them. Let charity start at home. Go take your money and buy new clothes and cars and pickups fine and phones and iPods and cameras, the latest and costliest kind. My children, they dote on all such things, and if you their love would win, you must do as they do and walk in the way, the up-to-date way they're in. The church, her purse snaps tightly shut, and shamefully lowered her head. She whimpered, I've given too much away. I will do, sir, as you have said. So the poor were pushed out of her mind. She heard not the orphans cry, and she silently covered her MasterCard as the widows went weeping by. Thus they of the church and they of the world journeyed closely, hand and heart, and none but the Master who knows all things understood they had once walked apart. Then the church sat down at ease and said, I am rich and in goods increased. I have need of nothing, and naught to do but to play, to sing, and to eat. The sly world heard her and laughed in his sleeve, and mockingly said aside, The church has fallen, the beautiful church. Her shame is her boast and pride. Thus her witnessing power, alas, was lost, and perilous times came in. The times of the end so often foretold of form and pleasure and sin. Then the angel drew near the mercy seat and whispered in sighs her name, and the saints their anthems of rapture hushed and covered their heads with shame. A voice came down from the hush of heaven, from him who sat on the throne. I know your works, and what you have said, but alas, you have not known that you are poor, and naked, and blind, with pride and ruin ensnared. The expectant bride of a heavenly groom is the harlot of the world. You have ceased to watch for that blessed hope, have fallen from zeal and grace. So now, alas, I must cast you out and blot your name from its place. There's a very sad picture painted here of the condition of the church. And if you think about it, and if you follow the poem carefully, if you think about what the poem depicts here, is a creeping compromise. A creeping compromise of the church with the world, a movement of the church towards the world, rather than the world towards the church. And I want you to think not of the church, because it's easy to hide behind the corporate image, behind the structure, the institution of the church, and say the church is doing this and the church is doing that and the church is slipping away from God. But I want you to think on an individual basis, because the church is comprised of individuals, you and I. And I want us to take a few moments for a little introspection. And I want you to think about the scripture in 2 Corinthians 6 verse 17, where the Bible cautions us to come out from among them and be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. So the counsel of the Lord is to be separate from the church. But as we listen to the poem, I'm sure we could identify with a lot of what we saw there. Now, the average Christian today is hardly any different from the world around him. He watches the same movies, listens to the same music, supports the same sports teams, and pursues the same dreams. They talk about the great American dream, and we might think about the Jamaican dream. What is the dream that you pursue? You know, to get my dream house, to get my dream car, to get my dream job, or whatever. The average Christian has the similar objectives to the world. Yet, this stands in direct opposition to the scripture we read a while ago that says, wherefore come you out from among them, and be ye separate, and touch not the unclean thing. Our movies should not be the same movies that the world watches. Our music should not be the same music. We shouldn't have those tastes. We should not be pursuing the same dreams. The dreams of owning my big house or my big car or my dream job, those should not be my dreams, because that's not in harmony with God's objective for us. The Christian and the world are supposed to be polar opposites. As the North Pole is exactly polar opposite to the South Pole, so should be the Christian from the world. You should be opposites. It should not be that when people see you, they don't know if you're a Christian or not. It should not be that when people hear you speak, they don't know whether or not you're a Christian. It should not be that when people see your activities of life, they can't tell whether or not you're a Christian. It should be worlds apart. The values, the goals, the hopes, the dreams should be diametrically opposed to each other. The world has only the here and now. So the world is working for the present, but the Christian lives for that which is to come. The world lives by that which is most pleasurable, but the Christian seeks first the approval of God. The world lives only for self, but the Christian seeks the good of others. These great differences should be evident among the people of God. These great differences should be seen easily, and it is what distinguishes the followers of Christ from the world. And this is what led Jesus to say of his disciples when he was talking to his Father in the prayer in John 17. He says, they are not of the world. John 17 verse 16. They are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. God's people, Jesus can say of them, they are not of the world. But can he say that of you and I today? Can Jesus say to his Father proudly, Don is not of the world, just as I am not of the world? James 4 verse 4 says, you adulterers and adulteresses, Know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with God? Whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. It's as simple as that. And if you are a friend of the world, you become an adulterer or an adulteress. It's as simple as that. When your affection is given to another, in this case the world, you become labeled as an adulteress or an adulterer. How disgraceful, shameful, and loathsome that title should be to us. We shouldn't want to be considered adulterers or adulteresses. And yet that's what we become when we make the world our companion, when we become friends of the world, when we want to be liked by people, when we want to be considered favorably in the eye of the world. And let me tell you, the vast majority of Christian denominations, that's what they have become. Because what? They have to be registered with the world as a church. They become a part of the World Council of Churches. They become acceptable to the world. When the church becomes acceptable to the world, there is something radically wrong with it. When the world approves your brand of religion, your brand of Christianity, there's something radically wrong with your brand of Christianity, because the world can't like true Christianity. It has never happened. It will never happen. That is why in Revelation 17 verse 1, the church is depicted as a great whore that sitteth upon many waters. And verse 2 says, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So the church has gone into fornication with the world. It's an adulteress. And again, separate yourself from the church and check yourself. Where am I in that? Because if the denomination I'm a part of is in fornication with the world, have I come out from among them and become separate, or am I in that fornication? Am I an adulterer or an adulteress because I am partaking in that fornication? Paul says, what fellowship? 2 Corinthians 6 verse 14, what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness? What communion has light with darkness? The two cannot dwell together. Light dispels darkness. Otherwise, darkness is going to snuff out the light. And what concord hath Christ with Belial? How can Jesus and Satan have agreement or concord or fellowship or friendship? It can't be. And yet, we claim that we have Christ in us, but we can be friends with these agents of Belial. That's not possible. And sometimes we wonder why we are not seeing the evidence of Christ in us. Maybe this is a part of the problem. Maybe we are trying to be friends of the world. Maybe we are trying to please the world. Because what? We don't like the world to frown upon us. We don't like people around us to think we are weird or strange. And yes, there's good reason for thinking people can be weird or strange. We think of Jim Jones and all these radical, foolish people who did wrong things. We think of the recent one right here with Kevin Smith. So, the devil is so smart. He creates these things that makes you afraid to stand out, makes you afraid to be different. But as in the lesson that we received this morning, Elijah was not afraid to be different. He was not afraid to put his life at risk when Ahab and the whole of the nation of Israel was hunting Elijah to put him to death. He was not afraid to keep faithful. Yes, maybe he was afraid of his life, but he was not afraid to remain faithful to the principles of God. And we have to be at that point where, though my mother and father forsake me, though my friends ridicule me and turn their backs on me, though the government sends the military and the police force for me, I will stand firm with Christ. It's not an easy road. So in that poem you saw how the world was ridiculing her. And that kind of thing wears you down. So you notice she didn't just go right over. It's a gradual thing. It's a creeping compromise. And brothers and sisters, I'm saying to us today, you've got to be careful about creeping compromise. You've got to be careful about the little things that you allow in your life, because it's not so bad. Because other Christians are doing it. Because God will understand. We've got to be so careful. I can't think of all the examples. There are so many little ways in which we compromise. Either because it's more convenient for us, it's more favorable to those around, we won't look so weird. I look and I see what passes for Christendom today. I remember, now I'm not going to talk about the rights or wrongs of things here. I'm going to talk about breaking down the evidence of difference. There was a time, I'm sorry to pick on women, but it's easy to find the things in women. But there was a time when Christian women did not process their hair. Just take that for an example. Now when I look around in the churches all over the place, it's not only processed, it is colored, it is all kinds of things. And so when you see a Christian woman now, her hairstyle is not much different from the hairstyle of the world. That's one of the things. When you see the dress lengths, when you see the tightness of the dress and so on. But it has moved from the women to the men, because I see the men with the worldly hairstyles in church, up on platforms, singing songs and preaching sermons to people, because they don't look they no longer look any different from the people in the world. Because what? This is the style, and they want to be accepted. They want to look the same. I am not saying there's something wrong with processing hair. That's not my purview right here. No, I'm saying we should want it to be known where we stand. We should want people to know, I am a child of God. Jewelry is one of the things that Christians never wore back in the old days. Now it's commonplace in Christendom. And there's maybe nothing wrong with putting on jewelry. But if that's the line of distinction, that you need to make so that people can know who you are. So I'm saying that sometimes it's not a right or wrong of something in and of itself, but we gradually compromise our principles, our standards. Why? It's easier. Make my life a little easier. Or it's less conspicuous. You don't stick out so much in the crowd, or other reasons we rationalize. But what's happening is that you are becoming more and more like the world, less and less distinguishable from the world. And that's what the church did. If we go back in church history, that's exactly what happened why the church, the then church, the Catholic institution, changed the Sabbath to Sunday, because it didn't want to be like what God had set up, but it wanted to accommodate the world more. The world would be more pleased with the Sunday worship because they were already keeping Sunday. They were already observing Sunday and things like that. The world already was into multiple gods, while Israel was one God. And so the church gradually moved to multiple gods. And now the doctrine of the Trinity is established and standard in Christendom. So the church has moved over to the world's side. And I'm saying, we can't change the church. We can't go and change the denominations. There's no point in fighting and trying to change my denomination, my chosen denomination from what it is. But you can You do have control over yourself. And you're not going to be saved by your denomination. You're going to be saved by your personal, individual relationship with God. You've got to be able to stand alone. And you've got to be able to know when the compromise is moving you. Every compromise that you make takes you one step closer to the world until you become an adulterer, a fornicator. You become a part of the harlot. The Bible, especially the New Testament, has a lot of verses cautioning us about this. It's amazing how many verses there are cautioning us about this, and it's because God knows how easy it is for the Christian to go to the world. Much easier from the world to come to. I've seen matrimonial unions where somebody goes and gets married to somebody who is not in the world, not in the church. So a Christian, somebody in the church goes and gets married to somebody who is in the world, with the hope that you will convert that person and the person will become a part of the church. And 9 times out of 10, the worldly hand pulls the Christian out. I know of people, or if they don't pull them out, you never win them in. I've seen it happen over and over and over again. So you end up with big compromise in your home. So you go to church every week and your partner is left at home. That's compromise. That's breaking down your marriage and your relationship, right? You have to do some things that will please him or her because you want to keep the marriage going. You don't want to break down the marriage. Hardly ever do you find that the person in the church wins over the person in the world. But you gradually make compromises until your standards of godliness are so eroded that even if you're going to church still, in truth and in fact, you're not even a Christian. You don't even know the Lord. So 1 John 2 verses 15 and 16 says, "Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him." So what are you pursuing in the world? If you love the world, if you are pursuing the things of the world, the love of God is not in you. It's hard to conceptualize because you go to church every week, because you read your Bible every day, because you pray morning, noon, and night. But you love the world. The love of God is not in you. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. And in these verses we see a description of what composes the world. The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life. That's what the world is composed of. Lust of flesh, lust of eyes, and pride of life. The desires of the flesh are for food, drink, and fornication. Those are the primary lusts of the flesh. Food, drink, fornication. And all of these, of course you need food, of course you need drink, and you need sex in the right context. So these can be fulfilled in the right context. But the world places so much emphasis on them. Look at the ads on the billboards, look at the ads on the television, even on the internet. What are they advertising? Sex to the large part. All kinds of sensuous things. They're selling a car and you have a half-naked woman selling the car, right? You're selling a burger and you have a half-naked woman eating the burger. It's all about promoting the sensuousness of the world. So that's what is of the world. And then you have all these fast food places and all these fancy things being advertised, appealing to the lust of the flesh. Food, drink, fornication, especially fornication. The world is full of that. The music is all about sex, and it's illicit sex. The movies you see in the movies, they no longer have good established Christian relationships where people will wait until marriage. They meet and it seems okay. It seems okay to go and indulge before getting married. And this is fed to the minds of people. What are your children doing watching those movies? They are feeding them with ungodly principles. This perverted view of intimacy is there in the movies. You go to the movies, what do you see? That's what you see. They are on the television, they are on the internet, and they are glorified in the songs that we hear. The lust of the eyes is for pretty things. Your jewelry, nice house, nice vehicle. A little old Lada don't exist anymore, but little old cars don't appeal to us. We want a nice, shiny car. We want something that looks good. You want clothes. Oh, I'm tired of this. Every week they see me in the same one. I can't be wearing this all the time. I need a new dress, I need a new shirt, I need a new pants, I need new shoes, even though you have several put down there that can be worn. You want new, nice, pretty things. You need new furniture. That old settee is old and it doesn't look good anymore, and when people come to my house, I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed for people to come in and see that old settee or that old dining table or that old bookshelf or whatever. I need a new one. Why? Lust of the eyes. Lust of the eyes. You need a new cell phone. Guess what? The one I have is working. I can make calls and I can receive calls. It's working fine. But this is an old version. I need a new one. And that's why every year they sell millions and millions of cell phones, and perfectly good cell phones are discarded because they need to upgrade. This is the lust for pretty things. This is the lust for new things. This is the lust of the eyes. Entertainment systems, games, playthings. The list goes on. Just think about it. So many things we do, so many things we go after that you don't really need, but you just want it because you're going to feel a little better. Some of these may be legitimate. You might really need a cell phone. Maybe the one is, the thing is not working good, so you need, sure. Or you might need a new settee because the spring is coming through the seat or whatever, something is going wrong. So some of these may be legitimate. And it's okay. But the emphasis that the world puts on it, they are advertising, they're pushing them to you every day. You need more of this, you need a new that, you need a new the other. And we are influenced by it. And so we buy into it and we go after these things. The world plays on it, getting the latest computer, even though the other one is working. You want the latest everything. Continually going after more, bigger, better. That's the thing they sell to you. You want something bigger, you want something better, you want to get more, and that's the lust of the eyes. The world's philosophy seems to be, he who dies with the most toys wins. And this is completely opposite to the Christian's view of life. The pride of life, now, it consists of the desire for recognition. Do you know who I am? You ever hear anybody like that? You want prestige. Oh, I am Dr. So. I am no longer Don Clayton. I can't check. Oh, what's your name? Oh, my name is Dr. Don Clayton. Because I have to let you know I have prestige, I have position. You must recognize me. Anybody you hear going after that and putting titles before their names, I'm sure the Father never named them doctor or anything. But humanity wants recognition. There are people who they can survive perfectly okay the way they are. But you know what? I have a master's degree. I think I should go after a PhD. And when they're finished, they write their name now, Don Clayton, PhD, so people can see. Or I am Professor this, or that, or the other. People, the pride of life is trying to be important. It's about self. Man's pride seeks to be well thought of. You want people to recognize and acknowledge you. You want to be honored. You want to have authority over other people. Now, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that is that this pride of life puts God out of the picture. It puts God one side and puts self on the throne. Self becomes enthroned and God is dethroned. Because in order for you to get recognition, and this was the essential, fundamental of the challenge that Satan raised to God, I will be like the Most High. I will exalt my throne above the clouds. I'm going to be up there. And that's what he came to Eve with and said, what? No, man, you're going to be like God. You're going to be elevated when you eat that fruit. And that's what he's doing to all of us today. Listen, you can be more than you are. You can be a better person. You can be a bigger person. People need to learn to respect you. You're not an ordinary man. You're not an ordinary woman. And so in doing that, you're displacing God. This is nothing less than idolatry. The Christian is to keep himself from these lusts of the world. God's word says, pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this: to keep himself unspotted from the world. It's not, listen, it's not a nice position to be in. It's not a favorable position. You don't look good. You look like you're fool. You look like you don't have any sense. You have so much potential, and look at you. Look at you. You are nobody. Nobody recognizes you. And all you have to do is this or that or the other. Old self wants to get on the throne. In Romans 12 verse 2, we are counseled, be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. I told you there are several passages of scripture. Ephesians 5 verse 11 says, have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. To keep yourself unspotted from the world requires a separation from the world. If we watch the same television, listen to the same music, read the same books, and go to the same places of entertainment that the world goes to, we are going to be like the world. We're going to be transformed to be like the world. There's no two ways about it. You are going to become like the world. You will. And don't tell me about how strong you are. Don't tell me about how committed you are. Don't tell me about your faith. If you associate yourself continually with a certain environment, you are going to be changed by that environment. Our interest in serving God is going to diminish because the environment you're in is not interested in God. We do little in fulfilling the greatest commandment, to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul and with all thy mind. Matthew 22 verse 37. When we do fulfill the greatest commandment, there's no interest for the things of the world. When we love God with all your heart, mind and soul, then you don't have any interest in the things of the world, because your interest is in things above. That is where your treasure is. Now, how does this happen? How do we get to the point of beginning to compromise? It is so easy. James 1 verse 14 says, every man is tempted when he's drawn away of his own lust and enticed. There is something within you that desires and needs food. So it's your own desire for food. Something needs drink. Something needs sex, clothes, shelter. So there is a natural desire in you. But so you become tempted when you are drawn away by that natural desire. But then that desire now conceives, because the devil is waiting to satisfy that. He's waiting with things to fulfill that, and you've got to stay connected to God that you can recognize the traps of the devil. So that natural desire for food. Remember when Jesus was in the wilderness, hungry, 40 days and 40 nights fasting. Of course he was hungry. Of course he needed food. So he had a natural desire for food. And the devil said, just turn those stones to bread. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with turning stones to bread? You're hungry. You've done it, man. You've done 40 days and 40 nights. That should be enough. It's time to eat now. And you have the power. You have the power to do it. So serve yourself. That's what he was getting. That's what he was getting at. Serve yourself. Use what you have available to serve yourself. You know, the word says to you, you do your best and then God will do the rest. You hear that? Who comes first? You. Do your best and God will do the rest. God gets second place because you've got the powers. Lust, when it has conceived, when you allow it to take control of you, when you allow your desires for these natural things to take control of you, it conceives and it brings forth sin. And then sin, when it is finished with you, it brings death. The early church understood this separation from the world. They placed great emphasis on not being a part of the world and its evil system. The world hated them because of this. The early church experienced persecution and martyrdom as a result. But today, many reap the reward for not compromising their faith by being friends with the world. So we're not experiencing persecution, we're not experiencing martyrdom. Why? Because we are close to the world, where the world doesn't see a threat in you. So it's not persecuting you, it's not doing anything to you because you're their friend. So I want to close now as we reflect a little bit on a part of that poem that I read at the beginning. And I want to ask, and it's for each of us to think about it ourselves. Have we exchanged our white robe for satin and silk? Do we now live in a house full of feasting and play? Do our preachers no longer warn us about judgment? And when I say preachers, I'm not only talking about when you come together here. I'm talking about even the ones you listen to on the internet. I'm talking about even the scriptures you read. I'm talking about where the messages come from to you. Are you filtering out the ones that are not saying what you want to hear and just keeping the one, like Jeremiah 23 says, say unto the pastors, don't preach unto us hard things, but preach unto us smooth things? Is that where we are? Do we spend our money on ourselves rather than feeding the poor and spreading the gospel to the lost? I mean, that's a question that we need to ask ourselves. What are we doing with our resources that God gives to us? Not just money, but any other resources. What are you doing? How much of it is going to the work of God, and how much of it is going to satisfy self, my own needs, my own wants, my own lusts? Have we become rich and increased with goods? You know what happens there, because in the end, those who have become rich and increased with goods, and I'm talking about goods in both senses of it now, goods, material goods, the goods of the world, the comforts of life that make you really feel nice here. You see, when we surround ourselves with these things, we are trying to make ourselves comfortable in the place where we are, and the place where we are is right in the heart of the world. So you're not uncomfortable there at all. But as children of God, we ought to be uncomfortable, buried deep in the systems of the world. We ought to be uncomfortable that we want to get out of it and go where we can commune with God better. But we keep on surrounding ourselves with the goods of the world that make our space where we are more comfortable. You ought to be miserable. You ought to be uncomfortable. You ought to want to get out of here. We are told that Lot, living in Sodom, it vexed his righteous soul living there from day to day. Our righteous soul ought to be vexed living in these cities every day, and we should want to get out. But instead what we do is we try to make ourselves more comfortable there. We put up burglar bars so the thieves can't get in. We put up all kinds of things. We decorate our homes with nice furniture so that we can be comfortable. We put in air conditioning to take off the heat, and microwave ovens and refrigerators and electric stoves and all these things. And then we get washing machines, and we have dryers, and we have dishwashers. So we are comfortable there. So why would you want to leave? Why would you want to go somewhere else? Why would you want a different environment? You're quite comfortable there. And the neighbors like me, and every day we talk across the fence, and we talk about politics, and we talk about even religion. I'm comfortable. No need to leave. But I'm also talking about increased with goods in terms of religion. Because we know the Laodicean church felt that it knew everything. It had all the doctrines that it needed, and it didn't need anything more. So you can't go and talk to them. And there are some of us, brothers and sisters, who are that way. We think we know it all, and we don't need to hear anything more from God. We don't need to get anything more from the Word, because we know it already. My church has given me all the doctrines I need, so I'm not listening to you. And then nobody else can say anything to me. So you're rich and increased with goods, and you don't recognize that you are wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked, and that Jesus says, I am going to spew you out of my mouth. Brothers and sisters, that's not us. That's not us. That's not us, because I know that my brethren will hear the word in season and will respond to the word of God and will submit themselves to the word of God and be safe when he comes. Be safe today. So if we have found ourselves drifting towards the world, can we just step back and say, no, you're not my friend, and head back over where we know we ought to be, safe in the arms of Jesus? This is my prayer and my wish for us all today.